Bhāgavatam from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srinivasa Acharya left Bengal, walked all the way to Jagannath Puri. And when he reached Jagannath Puri, everyone's weeping, rolling, wailing loudly. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has departed. Srinivasa Acharya started to cry. I am so unfortunate. I am so unfortunate. As he decided to walk back to Bengal, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in the dream and told Srinivasa Acharya, you don't have to go back. I have departed, but Gadadhar Pandit is still on the planet. He is the Bhagavatam teacher even for me. So go back to Jagannath Puri and learn from him. Srinivasa Acharya walked all the way back to Jagannath Puri, met Gadadhar Pandit, who was weeping and crying in separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Radharani is feeling separation from Krishna. And Srinivasa Acharya said, my only desire is I want to learn Bhagavatam from you. Gadadhar Pandit said, I am ready to teach you, but the only copy, the manuscript I have of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is completely moist. The ink on the paper, palm leaf of this Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is completely smudged by the running tears of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We have read Bhagavatam together, and at every verse, tears would drip from his eyes and they've smudged the ink. Now I can't even read my own Bhagavatam. I am ready to teach you provided I have a Bhagavatam. Srinivasa Acharya, can you arrange a copy of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? Bring it to me and I will teach you. Now in those days, you can't just put your hand up in a temple and say, I will sponsor a set of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Now we can do that for ourselves and for our neighbors and friends. Some homes we see multiple copies of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam sets. And when I asked the host, they said the book distributor was very smart. He came and told us, what if both of you get into a fight? The husband and wife. And at that time, you're not talking to one another. And both want to read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So you should have two copies, one each. And then the devotee said, two sets at home and both are unopened. So now it's easy, but in those days it wasn't like that. You have to find the right palm leaf. You have to find the right organic ink. You have to make your own pen. And apart from that, you have to find a Brahmana who knows Sanskrit and Bhagavatam syllable after syllable, because you make Rasva into Dirgha, small Matra into long Mantra, the meaning changes. And more importantly, you need to find someone with a good handwriting. It was very difficult. And then that person has to personally write out 18,000 verses of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by hand. No smartphone, no Kindle version, not possible. Srinivasa Acharya went back to his hometown. It took him more than 9 months to get another Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam written. And by the time he got it back to Jagannath Puri, Gadadhar Pandit had departed. Srinivasa Acharya was crying so much. He said, my father wanted me to study from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By the time I reached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told me to learn from Gadadhar Pandit. Now by the time I could arrange Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Gadadhar Pandit has departed. My life is miserable. These great Vaishnavas prefer to leave their body than to teach me Bhagavatam. Gadadhar Pandit came in the dream of Srinivasa Acharya and said, don't cry. Rupa and Sanatan are still on the planet. You can learn from them in Vrindavan. Now Srinivasa Acharya, with that manuscript from Jagannath Puri, from Tota Gopinath, walks all the way to Radha Govinda temple in Vrindavan. He enters Vrindavan and devotees are crying and wailing that Rupa and Sanatan have left this world. Srinivasa Acharya decided to jump into the Yamuna and give up his life. In his dream came Sanatan Goswami and Rupa Goswami and said, why do you worry? Jiva Goswami is still on the planet. Srinivasa Acharya didn't know how to find Jiva Goswami, because how do you find an Acharya in such a big dham? They all hide. They don't have ashrams. They don't have bhajan sthalis. They don't have visiting cards. They don't have a website. No phone, no contact. How do you just by yourself in Braj Mandal and you have to find Jiva Goswami. How do you do that? You ask Brajvasis, many of them may or may not know. And now you have to walk all your way. Somebody said, Jiva Goswami. I've heard that name somewhere. Another devotee said, Jiva Goswami, I do know him, but I don't know where he lives. Another Vaishnava said, I know where he lives, but he keeps moving. I'm not sure if he's there. One Vaishnava said, one thing is for sure, Jiva Goswami teaches Bhagavatam at Radha Govinda temple. You should go there. Srinivasa Acharya was sitting at the door of Radha Govinda there, waiting for Jiva Goswami to come. And Jiva Goswami walked in. And Srinivasa Acharya could just feel by the presence of Jiva Goswami's walking. His stature, his devotion, his compassion. Srinivasa Acharya begged Jiva Goswami, can you teach me Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? Jiva Goswami said on one condition, I cannot initiate you. I cannot initiate you. You have to take Diksha and come. You have to first find a guru, take Diksha, and then I will teach you. Srinivasa Acharya said, I don't know anybody. How do I find a guru now and take Diksha? Jiva Goswami Pad said, Gopal Bhatta Goswami is a very great sadhu. He manifested Radharaman. You should take Diksha from him. Now after going to Gopal Bhatta Goswami said, you should actually study Bhagavatam from Jiva Goswami. This is Srinivasa Acharya's life. He's being transcendently tossed and sandwiched by great acharyas who are either on the planet or who have departed. And he's walking all this way just for one desire, to study Bhagavatam. Lokanath Goswami walks all this way for one desire, to be with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Madhavendra Puri walked all this way for one desire, to find Chandan for his Gopal. And Sudāma walks all this way for one desire, not to find wealth, but to have darshan of Krishna. No pain, no gain. If we can chant Hare Krishna properly, if we can study Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam properly, if we can respect each other properly, we can't desire to be deserving enough to have darshan of Krishna. We have to work hard for everything. Materially, to make money, you have to work hard. To go through school and graduate with a PhD, you have to work hard. What to speak of meeting Krishna? Sudāma walked all this way. And as he started walking through so many different cities and villages, finally, he sees this transcendently effulgent place called Dwarka. Srila Jiva Goswami in Krishna Sandarbha, he describes that Dwarka is an eternally self-manifested, effulgent, transcendental abode of Krishna. As much as Vrindavan, so is Mathura and so is Dwarka. And that Nitya Dwarka manifests in this world. Very opulent. Can you imagine Vaikuntha is so opulent? Can't even imagine how opulent Dwarka is. Let's see what Sudāma faces. Griham dvi ashta sahasranam Mahishinam Hare Dvijaha Viveshaikatamam Śrīmad Brahmanandam Gato Yatha Dvija, Sudāma. Griham Dvi Ashta Sahasrana. Dvi means two. Ashta, 8. 2 times 8, 16. Sahasra, 1,000. 16,000 Mahishinam. 16,000 queens, each of them had an individual palace of their own. Now Jiva Goswami Pad in the Sandarbhas has even done mathematical calculations on the dimensions of each palace. And then after all of that calculation, he says, well, it's inconceivable. Jiva Goswami Pad writes, it's mystical how Dwarka could fit 16,000 palaces. And it's not that those palaces were just like townhomes touching one another. It wasn't like that. It's not that Satyabhama Devi and then you just look through the window and then the Rukmani's kitchen begins. It wasn't like that. There's an interesting analysis that Jiva Goswami Pad writes when he talks about Dwaraka in the Krishna Sandarbha. Would you be interested in knowing Jiva Goswami's purport? Srila Jiva Goswami Pad writes, and this is in the Bhagavatam, that one time Narada Muni, he entered a palace of Krishna, and Krishna had just woken up. Then he entered another palace of Krishna, and Krishna was chanting Gayatri. And he entered another palace of Krishna, and it's described Krishna was performing yajna. He entered another palace of Krishna, and he saw Krishna was giving cows in charity to the Brahmanas. Wow. He entered another palace of Krishna, and it's described in that palace, Krishna was hearing the Puranas. Brahmanas were reciting the Puranas, and Krishna was patiently listening. Narad Muni entered another palace, and Krishna was practicing sword fighting. Then Narad Muni entered another palace. Thank God, after all of that, Krishna was honoring some prasadam. Then Narad Muni entered another palace, and Krishna was sitting in the royal assembly, listening to the cases of different happenings in that city. Different subjects were entering, and they were speaking their case. Narad Muni entered another palace, and Krishna was playing dice with Rukmini. It's interesting how God finds time for doing things like this. In our tradition, what does God do? He plays the flute in Braj and plays dice in Dwarka. Narad Muni entered another palace, and Krishna was sitting with Satyabhama, and both of them were talking. Jiva Goswami Pad writes, Narada Muni was shocked. Why? Not because there were so many Krishnas, not because they were doing different things. These different things are supposed to be done at different times of the day. You wake up at a certain time, and then after that you perform your Gayatri, then after that you perform Yajnas, then you give charity to the Brahmanas, then you are hearing the Puranas, then you are honoring Prasadam, then you are practicing sword fighting, then in the eve, then you're listening to in the assembly the cases of different subjects and their grief. Then in the afternoon and the evening you're practicing some sword fighting, and at night you're playing some dice and talking to your wife. When Narada Muni entered all these palaces one after another, he realized they were all in different time zones. Jiva Goswami Pad writes, they were not palaces in the same Dwarka. Narada Muni was entering different Dwarkas in itself. Jiva Goswami Pad writes, just like one house can have many rooms, Krishna's one abode can have many prakashas, which means many parallel manifestations. So what the scientists talk about, multi-universe theory, Sandarbhas. Just like we say Krishna's pastimes are eternal in one, at this moment in one abode Krishna's being bound by Yashoda, in another abode Krishna's stealing butter, etc. There are multiple parallel manifestations of Dwarkadha. And Narada Muni was being taken by the Yogamaya potency, not from one palace to another in one Dwaraka, but from one palace in one Dwaraka to another palace in another Dwaraka in a parallel universe with time difference. And people like me have jet lag coming from North Carolina to Seattle. This is mysterious, this is mystical, this is inconceivable. Anirvachaniyam, Narad Bhakti Sutra. So these 16,000 palaces in one Dwarka were so opulent. Griham dvi ashta sahasranam mahishinam hare dvija. Shukdev Goswami doesn't say these were palaces of Krishna. He says these 16,000 palaces belong to the wives of Krishna. As soon as Krishna married the queens, he surrendered. They were the legal property owner for everything. Why? Because of devotion. When Krishna kidnapped Rukmini, it is described, when Krishna took the hand of Rukmini, Rukmini was very concerned because this was in the middle of so many soldiers and so many Kshatriyas. And Krishna, he pulled Rukmini onto his chariot and said, don't worry, your army is ready to fight. He did not say, don't worry, my army is ready to fight. When Krishna accepts somebody, Atmanam apiyachati, he gives himself completely. So therefore, Shukdev Goswami says, Harehe Mahishinam Dvi Ashtasahasranam Griha. Sudāma was stunned to see 16,000 opulent palaces belonging to the queens who were the wives of Krishna. And what happened? Vivesha. Pravesha. What does Pravesha mean? Enter. So Vivesha also has the same meaning. Sudāma entered. Where did he enter? Ekatamam. One out of those 16,000. Now we don't know which queen, right? But my Jiva Goswami knows. Srila Jiva Goswami churns Praman from all Shastras possible to prove that this was the royal palace of Rukmini Devi. Now look at the analysis. If you're okay, we will. Srila Jiva Goswami. He pulls out a verse from the Uttarakhand section of Padma Puran to prove where Vyasadeva says, Sudāma stood a few moments outside the door of the inner chamber of Rukmini Devi. That's the first proof. Second proof. In Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Canto 10, chapter 81, text 10. 10, 81, 10. That's the next chapter. Shukdev Goswami says, Tavat Shri Jagrihe Hastam. You see that section where Krishna's eating what Sudāma got and Rukmini holds his hand? So that's the section where it says Shri Jagrihe Hastam. Shri meaning Rukmini Devi held Krishna by the hand. Jiva Goswami Pad says the word Shri refers to Rukmini, which is the word which is used here. Śrīmad. That griham, that palace was Rukmini's palace because it has the name Shri there. And that's the same name that's used for Rukmini. Shri Jagrihe Hastam. Tavat Shri Jagrihe Hastam. Rukmini held Krishna by the hand and said, do you want to make your friend richer than Indra? Rukmini holds Krishna by the hand and she's called Shri at that time. Of course, for us who aspire Tad Dhama Vrindavanam, Shri for us refers to Shriji, Radharani. Bolo Radharani ki. But Srimati Radharani, as Krishna steps out of Braj, Shri Rupa Goswami Pad has explained. Chandravali Devi manifests as Rukmini Devi. And Radharani manifests as Satyabhama. As Krishna manifests as Dwarkadish. Lalita Sakhi, it's described, manifests as Jambavati. Rupa Goswami. Quite interesting. Krishna fought to get the hand of Lalita. The battle for Jambavati. So it's interesting. Sudāma entered the palace of Rukmini Devi and it's described. He stood outside the door of the inner chamber for a few moments. And just entering there, Brahmanandam gato yatha. He attained Brahmananda. What does Brahmananda mean? Tasyara binda nayanasya padara binda kinjalka mishra tulasi makaranda vayu. Antargata swavivarena chakara tesham sankshovam akshara jusham apichitta tanvo. Bhagavatam. Canto 3, chapter 15, text 43. The four Kumaras are going to Vaikuntha and they are already in Brahmananda. Brahmananda is described as that state where the person is in complete ecstasy. He can't remember anything. So the four Kumaras were in that state. But when the fragrance from the tulsi, from the lotus feet of Vishnu, carried by the wind, the breeze, entered into the nostrils of the four Kumaras, their Brahmananda was crushed to pieces because Premananda rose in their heart. So now Sudāma is in the state of Brahmananda. Premananda is about to come and Krishna will embrace him. So he is in the state of Brahmananda where he has forgotten himself. He has forgotten his wife. He has forgotten his children, his home, his poverty. He is in the state of complete ecstatic rapture, waiting to see Krishna. He knows he's only a few moments away. Our acharyas describe Sudāma went through different guards. He went through different gateways. He went through different soldiers. There was infantry, there were horses. Sometimes we hear people say that Sudāma had to beg the doorkeepers, please let me in. It didn't happen like that. Because in those days the Brahmanas could just enter any king's kingdom. There was no he begging at the feet of the soldiers outside and the doorkeepers and they're, hey. Sometimes you hear things like that. And Sudāma is crying, please tell about me to your Krishna. Who do you think you are? In all of that conversation. Hare dwar palo, kaho ja hari se, ki dware Sudāma garib aa gaya hai. Hindi mein. The song says, oh doorkeepers, please go and tell your Krishna that a poor, poverty-stricken, ill-clad friend of his is waiting at the doorstep. It's to definitely churn extra masala, extra emotion. But the Bhagavatam doesn't say things like that. There was no Dware Sudāma Garib aa gaya hai. Or sometimes you go to Vrindavan, you hear another flavor. Are dwar palo, kanaiya se keh do. Are dwar palo, soldiers, please go and tell Kanaiya. So all this happens in the world of the poet. But in reality, you see in the Ramayana, Vishwamitra Muni could just walk straight to the palace of Dasharath Maharaj. There was no Are dwar palo. There was nothing like that. Srila Jiva Goswami Pad has said, there were many security guards, but they just gave way to this Brahmana. Jiva Goswami has even done a calculation that for every group, there were 9 elephants, 27 horses, and 45 soldiers with weapons. And that was one group. And there were 30 such groups outside the city. And inside the city there were tall doors with doormen. And all of them just gave way. How and why? How would they know that this is actually a Brahmana? Because when Sudāma was walking, this is given in the works of Vishwanath Chakravarti and Jiva Goswami. When Sudāma was walking, Yadrichaya, by Krishna's inconceivable reciprocation, some Brahmanas of Dwarka saw him and they asked him his gotra. And he spoke. And the Brahmanas spoke to each other, probably in Sanskrit, and befriended each other. Now, as the Brahmanas of Dwarka were entering, who were recognized by the doorkeepers, Sudāma also got a free entry in. Although he was ill-clad. This is given by the Acharyas. That Sudāma befriended Brahmanas on the way, who were Brahmanas of Dwarka. And there was a royal entry up to being outside the door of the inner chamber of Rukmini Devi's palace. Quite scary, right? Imagine being the king and anybody can enter any part of your house. Dasharath Maharaj was so amazing. When Vishwamitra Muni came, Dasharath would get down from his royal seat and put Vishwamitra on the seat, saying that this kingdom belongs to you, you can have it. And Vishwamitra Muni would naturally say, no, I'm a Brahmana, I don't need it, it belongs to you. If it was in the present generation, neither would the person say this belongs to you, and if he says it, that person will literally take it. You said it. Right? Sudāma waited there. And it's described. As he waited outside the door, from the edge of the window where Krishna was sitting, Krishna looked outside and he saw somebody whom he loved so much. Shukdev Goswami says, Tam vilokya chuto durat priya paryankamastitaha sahasothaya chabhyeta dorbhyam paryagrahin muda tam vilokya achyuta dura priya paryankamastitaha. Krishna was sitting and talking to Rukmini Devi, and he looked from a distance, Durat. And as he saw from the distance, Achyuta, he who never leaves his position, left his position, and Sahasa, immediately Utthaya got up and ran. Cha Abheta, and he opened the door, looked at Sudāma, and Dorbhyam, with both his arms, Paryagrahin Muda, joyfully embraced his friend. You take one step towards the Lord takes 100 steps towards us, we have heard. Now Sudāma has taken more than 1,000 steps. Can you imagine being embraced by God? Just in this world, you're going through a tough time, and your mother tells you, don't worry, and she gives you an embrace. You almost feel like all your distress, all your problems have melted. When your father or your mother or someone you love, let's say your guru calls you close and says, whatever you're going through, don't worry, just tolerate and chant Krishna's name, I will pray for you, and he embraces. What do you think happens? I know one devotee who was embraced by his guru. He never washed that kurta ever again. He never wore that kurta, never washed that kurta ever again. He has it in his closet. He said, that is what I was wearing when my Guru Maharaj embraced me. Because his Guru Maharaj was not expressive at all. His Guru Maharaj would never talk much. He would never call any disciple, never say anything. And that Guru called him and embraced him. That was a big thing for the disciple. When our Guru let's say our Guru calls us by our name, what do you think happens? Imagine your Guru Maharaj calling you by your name. You feel your life is successful because he has seen you, he knows you. He called you by the name, and imagine Jagat Guru Krishna embracing. When Dhruva was touched by the conch shell of Vishnu, what happened to Dhruva? Choicest prayers came out of his mouth. He was horripilating. Yonta pravishya mama vacham imam prasuttam sanjeevayatya kila shakti dharaswadhamna anyamscha hasta charana shravana tvagadim pranan namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam. Dhruva Maharaj says, my dear Lord, I have never learnt Sanskrit, I have never learnt any grammar, I have never learnt Shastra, I don't know even how to offer prayers, but I don't know what has happened just by the touch of your conch shell. My body went through an electric current and these words are coming out of my mouth. Think about Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj stood there and he said, what can I say when the Devatas are not able to say much in front of you or Narasimha Dev? What can I say? And Narasimha calls him close and with his lotus palms touches his face. Actually, the Narsingha Puran describes Narsingha took Prahlad on his lap and licked his face. He was fully in the avesh of a lion. How would the lion express love for its cub? By licking. Narsingha took Prahlad on the lap and licked him, and imagine Prahlad being licked by Narsingha. People in this world who love their dogs feel so joyful when the dog licks them on the face. Imagine Nrsimha Dev, the Lord who came in a form that he never came for anybody else. Even Lakshmi could not recognize him. He came just for you. It's not that there was a big Kirtan Mela of 30,000 people and Krishna manifested there. For a 5-year-old child who never complained, never told Krishna, are you even there? I am going through so much, my father is torturing me. I'm chanting your names, where are you? Not once. Broke the pillar and a Shringa appeared. And he took baby Prahlad on his lap. And he embraced him, licked his face, touched his head. It's also described, he was smelling and sniffing the head of Prahlad, like the father to the child. May you live long, may you live long. Whenever you need something, I will come. There are many more pillars in this house. I will keep breaking one after another. Only after Nrsimhadev touched Prahlad, Prahlad chanted 50 verses in the 9th chapter of the 7th canto. Wow! Who can describe the glory of the touch of Bhagavan? Dhruva Maharaj gets touched by the conch shell and he offers prayers. Prahlad Maharaj gets touched by the soft palms of Nrsimhadev and he's offering prayers. Can you imagine Bali Maharaj being touched by the feet of the Lord? Can you imagine Kaliya's glory? You remain a rascal all your life. You spit venom through your mouth and kill all the Brajbasis. And Krishna enters your house, dances on your head and immortalizes you forever. The only demon in Braja who was not killed. Everyone else was killed. But Kaliya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, when he writes the titles in the Krishna book, he will say killing of Abasur. But he will say subduing of Kaliya. Why? Because he who's touched by the feet of the Lord is immortal. Somebody could say, why special favor on Kaliya? Because you can see in the Gita, Krishna said, if you are Krishnashrit, you are protected. What does Krishnashrit mean? Taking shelter of Krishna. But in Sanskrit, the word Krishnashrit can be broken in 2 ways. Krishna Ashrit, taking shelter of Krishna. Or Krishna Ashrit. Krishna is Yamuna. So Kaliya is Krishna Ashrit because he's taken shelter of Yamuna. Now if Krishna kills Kaliya, people for all times to come will say, he who was Krishna Ashrit was killed by Krishna. Therefore, Namami Yamuna Maham. Śrīpad Vallabhacharya Mahaprabhu, taking shelter of Yamuna Devi. Anybody who wants Krishna, however rascal we may be, how many ever mistakes we may have committed, taking shelter of Yamuna Devi, taking shelter of Giriraj, taking shelter of Tulsi, Brinda Devi, taking shelter of the dust of Braj, taking shelter of the dust of the lotus feet of Vaishnavas, Krishna can never reject us. Never. How amazing. By the touch of Krishna's lotus feet, water becomes Ganga. By the touch of Krishna's lotus feet, Queen Kunti in her prayer, she says, Tatpadai Ankita Bhati. The whole city has flourished, Krishna, just by the touch of your lotus feet. Even today, you go to Braj Mandal, there are so many places. But the most popular ones are Charan Pahadi, where Krishna places his lotus feet and the rock on which he placed his lotus feet melts by his presence. And even now there are imprints of Krishna's lotus feet on those rocks. Imagine Sanatana Goswami, who's walking every day. When we do Giriraj Parikrama, it's about 16 miles. But when Sanatana Goswami did Giriraj Parikrama, it was 26 miles. Every single day. Because he would not just do the inner parikrama, he would do the outer parikrama. He would go through all the villages, talk to all the Brajbasis, visit all the places, dip in all the kunds, circumambulate all the deities, and do Giriraj Parikrama like this every day. So Krishna saw that Sanatana is doing so much for me. Krishna told Sanatana Goswami, please, you don't have to walk. You're so old, please don't walk. Sanatana said, you please don't come between me and my love for you. You cannot decide what I should do for you. Krishna, you don't want me to walk? You close your eyes and think that I'm not walking. But Sanatana Goswami told Madan Mohan, I love you. I like to go to all these places that your lotus feet has touched. You cannot tell me how to restrict my love for you. That's one thing Krishna cannot. He can do everything else. But one thing he cannot do is he cannot come between the expression of the devotee and himself, which is based on love. He cannot. He cannot tell the devotee, reduce your devotion. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tried telling Haridas Thakur, reduce your number of rounds. And Haridas Thakur said, my dear Lord, please don't give me that instruction. Please don't give me that instruction. If it was us, and our Guru tells us, please don't chant so many rounds. We would tell our Guru, who told you these things that I'm chanting? It's been 12 days since I touched my beads. I don't chant. Guru said, okay, just checking. Just want to make sure you don't chant too much. Krishna told Sanatana Goswami, don't walk. Sanatana Goswami said, I must walk. I must surrender to you. Krishna said, okay, if you want to walk, then I will give you a rock of Govardhan. Krishna stood on top of Govardhan, pushed his flute to his lips, remembered Sanatana Goswami with all his heart, and with the love of his heart, out of remembrance of Sanatana Goswami, mixing with the breath infused into the holes of the flute, created such mysterious, mystical ragas that even the stone on which he was standing melted by Krishna's love for Sanatana Goswami. And then Krishna gave that to Sanatana Goswami and said, this is a rock gift from my side. Sanatana Goswami said, I can't carry it, it's too heavy. Krishna said, don't worry, I will carry it for you. Krishna carried the rock. Sanatana Goswami said, what am I going to do with this? Krishna said, you want to walk? Sanatana said, yes, I want to walk. Krishna said, just walk around this one rock. I will accept it. By the touch of Krishna's feet, the rock melted. By the touch of Krishna's feet, the city flourished. By the touch of Krishna's feet, Bali Maharaj became a Mahajan. By the touch of Krishna's feet, Kaliya was immortalized. By the touch of Krishna's palms, as Narasimhadev, Prahlad started chanting. By the touch of the conch shell, Dhruva started chanting. And those arms which always extend from Goloka Vrindavan downwards to lift us up, they went around the body of Sudāma, embracing him heart to heart. Sudāma later in the Bhagavatam says, Kwaham daridra papiyan, Kwa Krishna Śrīniketana, Brahma Bandhu iti smaham bahu bhyam parirambitaha. Sudāma says, who am I? A poverty-stricken beggar? Sinful? And Kwa Krishna Śrīniketana. Who is Krishna? He is the goddess, he is the husband of the goddess of fortune. And the arms which go around only pure devotees. Sudāma says, those arms went around me although I am not one. Bahu bhyam parirambitaha. Krishna embraced me. And it's interesting. Krishna was sitting with Rukmini. Krishna was sitting with his ministers. Krishna had all his assistants. Krishna had all his personal servants. And he left all of them behind to run to one friend, one devotee. Sometimes you see, especially when you do college preaching, we have seen this in Mumbai. When you start preaching in the colleges, some boys show interest. Now, for a special program, you bring in a brahmachari or a sannyasi, some Maharaj or some senior Vaishnava, and a monk, saffron-clad, shaven head, shika, 12 parts, tilak, Brahmin thread, brahmachari with dhoti walks into a college campus. So the boys who have started coming to the programs, they will not associate so closely with the monk because they feel judged, they are friends. What will they think of them? We've seen that. Those who just start coming, when they see a monk, they will try to look on the other side because they're with their friends. So they feel if they look there, the friends may reject them. Now once they start chanting a little more and they start coming for the programs, now the next higher response, you'll see the boys now will look at the Prabhuji and say,